Hey there, Drowsy Historian here. Tonight we're not drifting back to wars or plagues, but to the 1970s, an age sold in glitter and neon, a decade that promised liberation under the spin of the mirrored ball. The music is loud, the fashion louder, and every magazine insists the future is bright if you can just keep up with the beat. But beneath the sequins and smoke lies a quieter truth, one pressed into palms and swallowed without hesitation. A small white tablet, marketed as relaxation, celebrated as glamour, and destined to erase more lives than it ever freed. Before we put that first pill on your tongue and let the disco lights blur at the edges, do me one small favour. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is there. If you'd prefer these stories without ads, you can join the Patreon. It's linked in the description. And if you listen to these in bed, consider using a pair of wireless sleep earbuds for enhanced immersion. They're comfortable, discreet, and designed for side sleepers. I've linked my favourite pair in the description. Now, lie back, get comfortable. Let's begin. The year is somewhere in the middle of the 1970s, though you're not paying much attention to calendars anymore. The measure of time has become neon strobes and the endless bass line that rattles through your chest, not the square boxes on a wall chart. The club is a blur of sweat, perfume, hairspray, and cigarette smoke that burns your eyes, and for once, none of that feels like a burden. It feels like freedom, or at least the closest you've ever come to it. You've dressed yourself in something tight and shiny, not because you thought it looked good in the mirror, but because that's what everyone else was doing, and you're young enough to still believe that matching the crowd means belonging. The music doesn't let up. It pounds from the walls, each song spilling into the next as if time itself has been banished. You came here with a few friends, though in this room, even friends feel like strangers, each of you swallowed by the same beat, the same smoke. Eventually, a stranger comes up and presses something small and white into your palm. It is not a stranger's hand you'll remember, nor even their face. It is the cool, chalky smoothness of the tablet itself. Just a lude, they say, the phrase delivered with a casual shrug, as if they're offering you a mint to freshen your breath. There is no sermon, no medical pamphlet, no doctor's white coat to warn you of possible consequences. There is only the insistent beat of the music, the promise that you'll feel calmer, looser, freer, more like everyone else around you who seems to be laughing at jokes that don't have punchlines. The word just is the real seduction, as though the pill were a minor accessory, no more dangerous than a lipstick or a pack of gum. You roll it between your fingers for a moment, testing the weight, though there is nothing in it to suggest danger. It is no syringe, no ominous bag of powder, no bitter-smelling liquid in a brown bottle. It is small, white, clean. The kind of thing you might see in a medicine cabinet, prescribed by a smiling professional in a tidy office. That familiarity is its disguise. The danger does not look like danger when it is compressed into a neat manufactured circle. It looks like safety, like modern science wrapped up in efficiency, like the promise that you can buy calmness for the price of a drink. Around you, the smoke thickens, the lights scatter like shards of glass across the dance floor, and you realise you're hesitating, not because you're afraid, but because the pill feels too easy. Surely something this simple cannot matter. Surely something this small cannot hold the power to ruin anything. There is laughter beside you, the kind that sounds forced but passes for real in a room where nobody wants to be caught sober. The person who handed you the pill is already gone, lost in the crowd, swallowed by the throng of polyester and sequins. Nobody waits to see whether you'll take it or not, because in this place, of course you will. To refuse is to mark yourself as cautious, square, the kind of person who will never belong in a space built entirely on the illusion of endless fun. You lift it to your lips as if you are merely following a script already written, and perhaps you are. The disco doesn't reward hesitation. The DJ doesn't stop the record for moral debate. The rhythm is relentless, and so is the social pressure. The first swallow is anticlimactic. A sip of flat soda washes it down, and there's no cinematic pause, no gasp, no rush of energy like in the movies. Just the bland realization that you've ingested something you barely understand. But the moment carries with it a different kind of weight. You feel yourself step across a boundary, though you can't name it yet. It is not rebellion, though it feels like it. It is not danger, though you sense a faint tremor of unease. It is the act of saying yes, of letting something foreign dissolve inside you, because the room around you insists that this is what living looks like. The people dancing are not your friends, but they are convincing performers. They grin too widely, their hair glistens with sweat. Their eyes dart from one body to the next as though they're trying to catch a glimpse of themselves in the crowd. The air is heavy with perfume and desperation. Someone nearby spills a drink, and the smell of cheap alcohol mingles with the smoke until it seems the very air has been distilled into intoxication. The pill does not announce itself with a trumpet blast or a rush of adrenaline. It seeps in quietly, as though it were part of you all along, as though your body had simply been waiting for an excuse to soften. It starts with a warmth, low in your stomach, spreading outward until your arms and legs feel heavier than you remember them being. Not unpleasantly heavy, not the kind of weight that drags you down into exhaustion, but the kind that makes you want to lean against the nearest wall, let your limbs droop, and stop fighting the current of the night. The music still thunders around you. The lights still whirl above, but they no longer feel like demands. They are suggestions, background decoration, to the slow tide of calm rising in your veins. The weight spreads like liquid poured into a mould, filling every corner of your body until it seems you've been recast in a softer form. The tension you carried into the club, the tightness in your shoulders, the nervousness in your stomach, the small voice that asked whether you belonged here, all of it is muffled. Your laughter comes easier now, tumbling out in bursts that surprise you, as though the pill itself were telling jokes inside your head. Friends glance at you, amused by the way your words slur and tumble over each other, but you don't feel embarrassed. If anything, you feel included. Everyone laughs in a club like this, but tonight you are laughing with them, not at them, and that difference feels like salvation. The disco ball above spins relentlessly, and its mirrored facets scatter light across the room. To sober eyes, it might appear as a cheap trick, a tacky ornament hung too high, but to you, under the pill's influence, it becomes something transcendent. Each shard of light rains down in silver streams, shimmering as though you're standing in a downpour of glitter. The beams fracture across the smoke-filled air, streaking across faces and sequin shirts, creating illusions of movement that never quite stop. You watch the way the silver flecks crawl across your arms and chest, and for a moment it feels like you are part of the light itself. Your body, usually clumsy and awkward in its movements, seems to sway without effort, guided by the rhythm you had struggled to match before. The pill convinces you that the music and your body are finally in agreement. The people around you notice the change. Someone claps you on the back, another leans close to whisper something you don't quite catch, but you nod anyway. Smiling as if it makes sense, the pill dulls your need to understand. You don't worry about keeping up with conversation, because the words themselves no longer matter. It is the laughter that counts, the way your head tips back and your mouth opens and you hear yourself join the chorus of amusement. The sensation is cozy, like sitting in a room where everyone is speaking a language you barely know, yet feeling convinced that somehow you belong. For once, belonging doesn't require effort. It requires surrender. And the tablet has given you that gift. Your limbs begin to resist your commands, but even that feels like relief. When your hand knocks over a glass, you laugh instead of apologizing. When your feet stumble on the edge of the dance floor, you accept the arms that catch you. grinning at the strangers who suddenly feel like friends. The pill has softened the edges of shame, made mistakes into jokes, turned clumsiness into charm. It is seductive, not because it makes you sharper, but because it blunts the edges of everything that usually cuts. You float through the club in slow motion, buoyed by a heaviness that paradoxically makes you feel lighter. The music no longer pounds against you as an intrusion. It settles over you like a blanket, heavy and reassuring. The bass line that once rattled your ribs now seems like a heartbeat you can lean into. The voices around you blur into a single sound, indistinct and distant, but it doesn't matter. You are no longer responsible for keeping track of conversations, no longer required to match the rhythm of other people's wit. You are excused, permitted to drift, and nobody calls you out for it. If anything, they seem amused, and amusement is better than scorn. You ride the illusion of safety, convincing yourself that you have found a shortcut through the mess of nerves and doubt that usually plagues you. It is difficult to tell how much time has passed. Minutes and hours fold into each other, stitched together by the steady blur of light and sound. You think you have been dancing, though your legs ache less from movement than from holding you upright. At some point, you find yourself leaning heavily against a pillar, your head tilted back, eyes half closed. The silver spray of lights from the disco ball drips across your vision, and you laugh again, though you're not sure why. A hand presses another drink into yours, and you accept it without hesitation, though the glass feels like it weighs twice as much as it should. You raise it to your lips, the liquid sloshing down your chin, and grin as though you've made a clever joke. The people around you laugh again, and the cycle continues. Somewhere in the haze, you notice how the pill has shifted your perception of control. You think you're in charge of yourself because the world has not yet collapsed. You're standing, swaying, smiling. You can still move your arms, still open your mouth, still navigate the crowded floor. The illusion of control is as intoxicating as the drug itself. You tell yourself that you could stop if you wanted to, that you could leave the club right now, that you could return to sobriety whenever you chose. The thought comforts you, though you never test it. You stay, drifting deeper into the blur, convinced that choice still belongs to you. When you try to speak, your tongue feels thick, the words sluggish, clumsy, as though you're learning to talk all over again. Friends chuckle and lean in, repeating your phrases back at you with exaggerated slurs, but you laugh with them, delighted by the sound of your own absurdity. Your voice is a toy, something to be played with, and the pill has made you too comfortable to feel humiliated. You lean on the nearest body, unbothered by whose it is, and sway in rhythm to the music. For the first time in your life, you feel like you're exactly where you're supposed to be, and that conviction is powerful enough to drown out the small, quiet thought that maybe you are losing something in the process. The heat of the room clings to you. Sweat beads across your skin, soaking into your shirt, but you don't feel disgust. You feel cocooned, wrapped in the collective warmth of bodies pressed too close together. The air is thick, damp with smoke and perfume, but it doesn't repel you anymore. It embraces you, stifling and soothing at the same time. Your eyelids droop lower and lower, but you don't resist. You tell yourself, this is what you wanted, what everyone here wanted, to melt into the night until identity itself dissolves. The pill has delivered on its promise. You are calmer, looser, freer, or at least something close enough to pass for those things under the relentless spin of the disco ball. As the night stretches on, your body sinks further into heaviness. The dance floor spins, the lights stretch into long ribbons, and your mind folds inward. You are vaguely aware of being guided across the room, your feet dragging, your body pliant. Someone laughs as you stumble, but their arm keeps you upright, and you let them. You no longer know where the music ends and your body begins. You are half asleep, half awake, suspended between the two states, as if the pill has stolen the ability to distinguish them. The last thing you remember clearly is standing, eyes drooping, swaying as though the floor beneath you were a raft drifting on dark water. The voices blur into a single hum, the lights dissolve into a silver mist, and your body folds against the nearest surface. Arms gather you, guiding you out of the club, into the cooler air of the night. You don't resist, you don't protest, you don't even think to ask who carries you. You are convinced it doesn't matter. To you, this is still harmless, still fun, still nothing more than a pill that made the night easier. The thought follows you into the dark as you drift half asleep on your feet. It was just a lewd, and you will take another when the next party comes. The morning is not kind. You come to with a heaviness that feels stitched into your bones, a sluggish weight that refuses to lift no matter how many times you shift in the sheets. Your stomach turns sour before you even open your eyes, the aftertaste of last night clinging to your tongue like something spoiled. The light that leaks through the blinds is too sharp, too accusing, as though the sun itself has grown impatient with your slow crawl into wakefulness. You try to piece together where you are, what happened, who carried you home, but the memories scatter before you like startled birds. You are left with fragments, the glint of silver light, the burn of cigarette smoke, the sound of laughter that might have been yours. Everything else is blank space, a film reel with missing frames. The headache arrives in pulses, each throb behind your temples, reminding you of the pill that seems so harmless in your hand. It is not the pounding of alcohol alone. You've had that before, familiar and brutish in its own way. This is different. This is a fog that stretches across your mind, a muffling of thoughts that makes you feel slower, duller, less able to climb your way back into clarity. Your body rebels in small ways, your mouth dry to the point of pain, your limbs unwilling to respond with their usual quickness, your stomach growling not with hunger, but with resentment. You feel as though you have borrowed someone else's body, and they were careless with it before handing it back. The worst part is the gaps. You know you laughed, you know you stumbled, you know arms held you upright, but you cannot remember who they belonged to. You cannot recall the songs that played, the conversations that drifted in and out of your slurred speech, the faces that loomed too close in the blur. You know you danced because your legs ache, but you cannot summon the image of yourself doing it. The night is not a story you can tell. It is a collection of impressions, smeared across your mind like paint across a dirty wall. The club may as well have swallowed you whole, then spat you out again, dazed and blank. And yet, when you drag yourself upright and stumble toward the bathroom mirror, the face staring back at you is not horrified. You are pale, yes, and the circles under your eyes are darker than usual, but there is also a trace of something else. Relief, perhaps, or satisfaction. You tell yourself that this is normal, that everyone feels this way after a night out, that grogginess is just the tax levied on fun. You splash cold water on your face, watch the drops run down your neck, and convince yourself you look no worse than anyone else. If anything, you look like you belong to the crowd now, marked by the same exhaustion they carry, like a badge of membership. When you finally step outside, the world feels too clean, too bright. The street is loud with traffic, the air filled with the sound of people hurrying to jobs you can hardly imagine yourself doing. You move slowly, each step heavy, as though the ground itself has thickened. There is a faint buzzing in your ears, a reminder of the music that refused to stop, but now it plays without rhythm, a ghost beat that makes everything around you seem slightly out of sync. You light a cigarette you don't really want, more out of habit than desire, and it tastes like ash in your dry mouth. You cough, your stomach clenches, and Still you drag on it, convinced that you are merely playing your part in the role everyone else has mastered. Later, when you meet your friends, they look as sluggish as you feel. The same pale faces, the same slow movements, the same faint air of someone dragged out of bed before their body was ready. They laugh at how little anyone remembers. One insists you danced on a table, another swears you collapsed into their lap. A third claims you said something so funny they nearly choked on their drink. You smile, nod, pretend to remember, though the truth is you cannot summon a single image of any of it. You rely on their retellings as though they were gospel, adopting their memories as your own. The gaps in your mind don't scare you yet. They amuse you. You all laugh together at the absurdity of forgetting, treating it as proof that the night was a success. It becomes clear that the culture itself demands this forgetfulness. To recall too much would be to admit how sloppy, how sad, how dangerous it all looked in the harsh light of clarity. Better to embrace the blank spaces as part of the ritual. Better to treat your patchy memory as a trophy, a sign that you went deep enough into the blur to erase yourself for a while. Everyone nods and chuckles when someone admits they can't remember how they got home. Everyone congratulates the ones with the wildest gaps, the longest stretches of missing time. Amnesia is not a problem. It is a punchline, a shared joke, a badge of honour in the culture you've stumbled into. You tell yourself that the headache will fade, that the nausea will pass, that the sour taste in your throat will be gone by evening. You tell yourself the fog will lift, and it does, eventually, though more slowly than you'd like. By the time the sun dips low again, the memory of discomfort has already begun to dull. You remember the laughter more than the nausea, the glitter more than the headache, the warmth more than the fog. Your body's not grateful for the deception, but your mind clings to it as a lifeline. You have convinced yourself that the high outweighs the haze, that the price you paid this morning was fair. And so by the time another night begins to unfold, the decision has already been made. You straighten your shirt, swallow something greasy to calm your stomach, and prepare to go out again. The disco calls, the music promises relief, and you tell yourself you've learned the pattern. A night of blur, a morning of haze, and then back again, as if repetition itself can pass for freedom. The pill was never meant to be a one-time experiment. You see that now, though you don't yet admit it. The high is worth the haze, and you're already prepared to prove it again. The moment you step inside, you notice what you somehow missed the first time. The pills are not secret, not rare, not special. They are everywhere. The bartenders slip them across the counter alongside drinks, the motion so practiced, it seems scripted. A man in a silk shirt leans on the bar, asks for a gin and tonic, and receives with it a small white tablet without even breaking conversation. No one hides it, no one whispers, no one pretends. The pills are part of the order, part of the performance. Strangers brush past you on the dance floor, pressing something into your hand with the same casualness as a handshake. A woman in sequins tilts her head back and swallows without water, laughing as though she has told the best joke of the night. Around you, the air hums with the same rhythm. Swallow, laugh, stumble, repeat. You realise quickly that what you thought was a daring experiment was nothing of the sort. It was an initiation. The normalization is almost intoxicating by itself. You see tablets lined up on tables like after-dinner mints, see them resting in open palms as though offered out of politeness. Nobody pauses to question. They're treated like candy, like cigarettes, like part of the scenery. In a decade that prides itself on freedom, on breaking from the stiff rules of the past, these pills feel like the perfect accessory. They belong to the same costume as glittery eyeshadow, wide collars, and platform shoes. They are marketed as relaxation, sold as entertainment, and swallowed as though they are part of the soundtrack itself. To say no would be stranger than to say yes. You feel that pull again, the tug of wanting to belong, and you give in easily. A tablet pressed into your hand disappears almost without your consent. The swallow is faster this time, less hesitation, less curiosity, more muscle memory. You already know the warmth that will come, the heaviness that will settle, the laughter that will bubble up out of nowhere. The pill feels like a ticket to a place you've already visited and are desperate to return to. You're not afraid anymore, not even cautious. You are eager. That eagerness itself is its own warning, but you do not recognize it as such. You only know that you want to slide back into the blur, to let the edges of the night soften before they can cut. The crowd confirms what you want to believe. Everywhere you look, you see people laughing at their own slurred words, bodies swaying too heavily to the music, friends dragging each other up from the floor only to collapse into fits of amusement. Collapse itself is treated as comedy. Stumbling is applause-worthy. Blackouts are funny anecdotes for tomorrow. The people who can't remember half the night are congratulated, not pitied. You realise this is not an accident of culture. It is the culture. The blank spaces in memory, the groggy mornings, the sour stomachs. They are reframed as part of the price of admission. If you suffer through them, you are part of the club. If you do not, you are left outside, uninvited to the communion. The music feels different under this new understanding. The beat isn't just pounding, it's complicit. It covers the awkward silences when speech slurs beyond recognition. It fills the gaps where memory begins to break apart. The mirrored ball scatters its silver light across the room, and each shard of brightness lands on someone who looks just like you. Heavy-lidded, slack-limbed, laughing too loudly at nothing. You are part of a chorus now, your own body swaying with theirs, the warmth rising through you again, like tide water. What was once strange is now routine. You don't marvel at it anymore. You expect it, welcome it, lean into it with relief. You lean against strangers, and they lean against you, the shared weight convincing you this is intimacy. Pills pass between you, all like gifts, like tokens of friendship. Nobody hoards them. They circulate endlessly, each one passed from hand to hand, each one swallowed with the same careless grin. You don't think about how many you've had, or how many the people around you have swallowed. You don't think about doses or limits. You only know that the room feels warmer now, softer, easier, as though the walls themselves have bent to accommodate your collective fog. The irony is that the sameness makes it all seem safe. How could something be dangerous if everyone is doing it? If bartenders hand them out as casually as drinks? If the dance floor is full of people who all wobble and laugh in the same rhythm? The very ubiquity disguises the danger. It feels regulated, normalized, sanctioned by the sheer number of people who participate. You tell yourself that true danger looks different. Needles in alleys, powders on mirrors, whispered deals in dark corners. This is not danger, you insist. This is polished, packaged, harmless. This is medicine turned into entertainment, and entertainment turned into freedom. You swallow again, convinced that something this common cannot possibly matter. As the hours grind forward, the fragments begin to multiply. You speak to someone whose name you never catch, but later you will remember only the glitter on their shirt. You dance with someone you cannot describe, your legs moving in a rhythm you will forget before the song ends. You laugh at something that might not have been a joke at all. Already, the details are slipping, even as you live them. The pill has not only softened the edges of the night, it has erased them. You are convinced you're present, that you're in control, but each moment dissolves almost as soon as it passes, leaving only scraps. The floor grows more crowded, the air thicker with smoke, the music louder, until it feels like the walls themselves are vibrating. People collapse onto couches, lean against each other, spill their drinks, and nobody cares. You lose track of time, of how long you've been standing, of how many pills you've swallowed. You tell yourself, it doesn't matter. The rhythm is all that matters. The blur is all that matters. And the crowd insists this is enough. You are included, part of the mass, absorbed into something larger. The seduction is complete because it doesn't feel like seduction anymore. It feels like inevitability. By the time the night reaches its peak, you are already fading. The laughter around you sounds distant, the music muffled despite its volume. Your body is heavy, your limbs reluctant, your thoughts sluggish. You smile when someone presses another tablet into your palm, but you're not sure if you swallow it or drop it. The memory will be gone either way. You stand on the floor surrounded by hundreds of bodies, swaying under the fractured silver rain of the disco ball, and yet you are already drifting into fog. The night is roaring. The floor is packed, but your mind is breaking into fragments you cannot hold. The nights blur together after a while. One disco turns into another, one Saturday melts into the next, and soon you stop trying to separate them. Each week follows the same rhythm, the glittering chaos of the club, the reflected lights from the mirrored ball, the pills passed from hand to hand like communion. Then the mornings come, groggy, sour, pieced together from scraps of memory and second-hand stories. At first you tell yourself it is just a phase, a streak of wild nights while you're still young enough to claim youth as an excuse. But as the weeks stretch into months, the pattern stops looking like an indulgence and starts looking like a routine. Summer bleeds into autumn, and by the time the leaves have begun to fall outside, you hardly notice. Your calendar is not measured by months anymore, but by the rhythm of the beat, the bottle, the fog. The pills cease to feel like novelties. They are not exotic anymore. They are not whispered about, not hidden, not even particularly interesting. They are fixtures of your weekends, as predictable as the DJ's endless playlists, as inevitable as the ashtrays overflowing by midnight. Each time you swallow, you know what will follow. The warmth, the slackness, the laughter that comes too easily. The surprise is gone, but the need remains. You do not even ask yourself whether you want them. You simply expect them to be there, waiting, ready to soften the edges of another too loud night. And then, without your noticing, the pills begin to follow you home. At first it feels like practicality. After all, why wait until you are under the flashing lights and the suffocating smoke when you could get ahead of the tension before it builds? One evening, restless and unable to sleep, you tell yourself it is harmless to take one in your own room. The disco lights are absent, but the effect is the same. Warmth in your limbs, heaviness in your eyelids, thoughts that stop clawing at the walls of your mind. You drift into sleep more easily than you have in weeks, and in the morning you tell yourself it was just for rest, just for recovery, just to balance the scales. After too many late nights, it becomes a habit faster than you admit. The clubs are still there, still calling, but now you find reasons to swallow even when you stay in. One pill to settle your nerves before meeting friends, one to ease the tension after a long day, one to coax sleep when your mind refuses to cooperate. The excuses pile up, neatly stacked, and each one sounds reasonable enough. They were, after all, prescribed once upon a time for insomnia, for anxiety, for stress. You remind yourself of that often, as though invoking the authority of doctors can disguise the truth of what you're doing. You are not abusing anything. You insist. You are simply managing. The justifications grow more elaborate as the months pass. When the season shifts and the nights grow colder, you tell yourself you need one to take the edge off the winter gloom. When the days grow longer again and the sun lingers too brightly, you say it helps you sleep despite the heat. At work, you whisper to yourself that a single pill the night before makes you sharper in the morning, even as you drag yourself through tasks slower than ever. At parties, you insist that it keeps you calm enough to hold a conversation, though the truth is your words slur and stumble, and people smile politely while edging away. You do not hear their retreat. You only hear your own soothing narrative, repeated like a lullaby. You begin to notice the rituals of it, the little habits that surround the swallow. The sound of a tablet rattling in the bottle becomes strangely comforting, a prelude to the calm you know will follow. The way water tastes when you gulp it down afterward becomes part of the seduction. The feel of the pill on your tongue, chalky and dry, registers as safety rather than warning. You create small ceremonies around it, as though to give dignity to what has already become compulsion. You tell yourself it is civilized, measured, under control. You are not someone collapsed on a bathroom floor with a needle. You are an adult with a tablet, taken at the right time, in the right way. That distinction comforts you, even as it unravels. Days pass in the same slow drift. You do not think of yourself as addicted because you still tell yourself you are choosing. You choose to take one at night. You choose to take one when the noise of the day feels too sharp. You choose to take one before heading out, to get ahead of the blur that you know is coming anyway. The choice comforts you, convinces you that you are in control. But already, the truth is shifting beneath the surface. Already the choice has hardened into expectation. Already, your body has begun to anticipate the dull heaviness, to crave the silence that falls when the pill has melted into your blood. The weeks stretch on, and with them the lines blur. What was once only at the club is now in your kitchen, on your bedside table, in your pocket during the day. The pills move with you like shadows, small and white, and always close at hand. You notice you're less patient when they are not nearby. You notice a sharpness in your temper when the bottle runs low. You notice your body restless in the evenings if you delay. But you dismiss these signs as trivial, mere inconveniences. You still insist you are managing, still tell yourself you could stop if you wanted to. You never test the claim, because you do not really want to know the answer. Conversations with friends confirm your rationalizations. They speak the same way you do, complaining about nerves, about sleepless nights, about the difficulty of balancing jobs and parties, and the relentless demand to perform ease in every social setting. They nod when you admit you take one to sleep. They laugh knowingly when you confess you sometimes need two. Nobody looks shocked, nobody scolds, nobody warns. It is all so ordinary that you begin to wonder how anyone functions without them. The pill has become part of the decade, as woven into the fabric of your life, as polyester and mirrored glass. You are not a deviant, you are simply modern. At some point you notice the days when you do not take one feel longer than they should. The hours drag, your body aches with a restlessness you cannot name, and your thoughts jab at you like needles. The world feels louder, brighter, less bearable. The relief when you finally swallow again is so immediate, it feels like a homecoming. But even then you do not call it dependence, you call it preference or habit or coping. You string together euphemisms like beads, a necklace you wear proudly, convinced it makes you sophisticated rather than shackled. The truth presses in, but you smother it under the same thick fog you invite into your body night after night. The illusion of control lasts until the first small scare. It comes on an evening like any other, a night when the world has pressed too heavily against you and you reach automatically for the bottle. Your hand closes on glass, you tip it, and nothing comes out. You shake it harder, certain you must have missed something, certain there must be one left rattling inside. But the silence is absolute. The pills are gone. The bottle is empty, and you cannot even remember when you took the last one. The panic is sharp, sudden, almost embarrassing in its intensity. Your chest tightens, your palms sweat, your thoughts begin to race in a way you're no longer accustomed to. The quiet you have grown used to has been ripped away, and the noise of the world floods back in all at once. You pace the room, opening drawers, as though a stray tablet might have slipped inside, rummaging through pockets, checking old glasses by the sink. The emptiness gnaws at you in a way no hunger ever has. The thought of sleep without one fills you with dread, not because you've tried it recently, but because you cannot remember the last time you managed it. You tell yourself you will get more tomorrow, that it is only a small delay, but the truth has already exposed itself. You are not calm without them. You are not in control. You are dependent on a small white tablet to function, to sleep, to relax, to exist in your own skin. And though you try to laugh it off, try to shrug at the empty bottle as though it means nothing, the unease lingers. It seeps in quietly, a whisper you cannot ignore. You are chained, and you did not even notice the links being fastened around you. The scare of the empty bottle lingers for a time, though not long enough to change you. You replace it quickly, and the relief is so immediate, so overwhelming, that the fear dulls and slips into the background. But after that, something shifts. The tablets are no longer occasional comforts, no longer weekend companions or late-night indulgences. They are constant, expected, integrated into the rhythm of your days and nights. Weeks turn into months again, and with them the use grows heavier. The idea of skipping even a single night now feels impossible. The idea of leaving the house without a tablet nearby unthinkable. And as the quantity increases, the body begins to protest in ways you can no longer pretend are subtle. At first it is small things you can laugh off. A word comes out tangled, and you chuckle as though it were intentional. You spill a drink, and you make it into a joke about clumsiness. Your friends laugh with you, because for a while the mistakes still seem harmless, still seem like part of the game, but the slips keep multiplying, and soon the laughter around you takes on a different tone. Your speech slurs more often than not. Your tongue thick in your mouth, even when you think you're speaking clearly. The syllables stick together, words stumble and stagger out of order, and people tilt their heads as though waiting for you to repeat yourself. Sometimes they do not wait at all. They simply smile awkwardly and let the conversation move on without you. Your legs betray you too. Stairs seem steeper than they once were, curbs higher, floors uneven. You catch your toe against a crack in the pavement and stumble forward, arms windmilling for balance. In the club, you sway too far to one side, crashing into a stranger who shoves you away with irritation. You laugh, apologetic, but the laughter sounds strained even to your ears. The stumble is no longer charming. It is expected. People begin to avoid standing too close lest your heavy body tip into them again. You tell yourself it doesn't matter, that you are too wrapped in the fog to notice, but deep down you see the way eyes flick toward you now. Not with admiration, but with warning. The nausea is a regular companion now. It twists in your stomach at the worst moments, sour and relentless. Sometimes it comes before the pill has even dissolved fully, as though your body is revolting against the intrusion it has learned to expect. You excuse yourself from tables, from conversations, from dance floors, stumbling toward bathrooms where you retch until bile burns your throat. You splash water on your face, stare at your reflection in cracked mirrors, and convince yourself you can smooth it over. Return to the crowd as though nothing happened. Nobody needs to know, but they do know. They smell it on your breath, see it in the pallor of your skin, hear it in the ragged edge of your laughter. There are nights when the vomiting is worse, violent enough that your ribs ache afterward, your body trembling with the effort of emptying itself. Yet the next evening you swallow again, as if nothing happened, as if your body's rejection were a trivial protest easily ignored. You tell yourself you can ride it out, that the sickness is temporary, that the relief of sedation outweighs the discomfort of nausea. You become adept at excuses, bad food, too much to drink, a touch of flu. But the excuses sound weaker each time you say them, and you notice the way people's eyes shift when you offer them, the way their mouths twitch into half smiles that are closer to pity than belief. The jokes begin, whispered first, then spoken openly. Lewd zombie, they call you, the term tossed into the air, with forced laughter. At first you laugh along, convinced it is better to own the name than to resist it. You slump your shoulders, drag your feet in mock imitation, let your tongue loll for comic effect, and the crowd roars with amusement. But when the laughter dies down, you see the truth in their eyes. They are not laughing with you, they are laughing at you. You have become a caricature, an object lesson, a moving corpse shuffling through the disco haze. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it. Every smile feels sharpened, every chuckle aimed directly at you. The pity is worse than the mockery. You notice it in the way someone puts a hand on your shoulder, gently guiding you toward a chair, as though you're fragile. You notice it when friends offer you water instead of another drink, their voices too soft, their smiles too careful. You notice it in the way strangers shake their heads as you sway past, muttering under their breath. They are beginning to treat you not as part of the scene, but as its ghost, haunting the edges of the dance floor with your slack limbs and your half-shut eyes. You want to rage against it, to insist you're still the same as them, but your body betrays you too obviously, and your protest dissolves into another slurred word, another stumble, another empty laugh. Even outside the clubs, the decline is obvious. At work, your speech is slow, your eyes unfocused. You shuffle papers without reading them, nod through conversations you barely follow. People begin to avoid asking you questions, to bypass you entirely, as though you're not capable of handling even simple tasks. On the street, you lurch instead of walk, your body too heavy, your coordination too dulled. You pretend not to notice the looks, the whispers, the way people step aside to let you pass, but you notice every gesture, every glance, every reminder that you are no longer invisible in the blur. You are visible now in a way you do not want to be. Visible as a warning, visible as an embarrassment, visible as a joke. The body that once seemed pliant, softened by the pill into something manageable, has become an obstacle. You move through the world as though dragging chains, each step an effort, each word a trial. You tell yourself it is temporary, that your body simply needs time to adjust, that the benefits still outweigh the costs. You remind yourself of the warmth, the heaviness, the blur that feels like relief. You cling to the memory of that first night when the pill felt like liberation instead of confinement. You convince yourself you can still get back there if only you endure the side effects, if only you ignore the sickness, if only you swallow again. The irony is that even as your body weakens, your hand reaches more often for the bottle. You no longer hesitate. You no longer question. The ritual is too ingrained, the need too strong. You shake the pills into your palm, swallow, and wait for the fog to descend, telling yourself that this time will be easier, that this time the nausea will not come, that this time the mockery will not sting. You lie to yourself as easily as you once lied to others, because the alternative, to stop, to resist, is unthinkable. And so, with your speech slurred, your steps unsteady, your stomach rebelling, and your friend's eyes shifting between pity and laughter, you still reach for the next pill. You still tip your head back, still swallow, still convince yourself you can ride out the side effects. You cling to the illusion that control remains within your grasp, even as your body makes it clearer every day that the chain has tightened beyond escape. The party life starts to feel different now. The sparkle is still there. The mirrored ball still scatters silver light across sequins and painted smiles. The music still pounds from the speakers with the force of a heartbeat. but it no longer dazzles you. It feels worn, dulled, as though someone has taken the shine and rubbed it down to its bare surface. Where you once felt swept up in the spectacle, you now feel separated from it, watching the same tricks performed night after night. Too familiar to surprise you and too empty to satisfy. The crowd is still shouting, but you hear it through a fog. Your friends notice the change too, though they frame it differently. At first, they are patient. They laugh off your slurred words, guide you home when your body collapses under its own weight, reassure you when you wake up panicked about the blank spaces in your memory. But patience erodes quickly when the pattern does not change. You begin to hear excuses more often. Someone is too tired to go out. Someone has other plans. Someone cannot make it tonight. You know the excuses are lies because you hear the music in the distance and see them later on the dance floor, laughing with someone else. They are not avoiding the club. They are avoiding you. The partners are even quicker to lose patience. What was once seen as daring or fun, the looseness in your limbs, the carefree slur of your speech, has curdled into something else. They do not find it glamorous anymore. They find it tiresome, embarrassing, dangerous. They stop inviting you to smaller gatherings, to dinners, to afternoons that require something steadier than your half-lidded eyes and sluggish smile. The calls come less often, the visits dwindle, and you're left to fill the silence with another swallow. Another night at the club, where at least the music still drowns out your thoughts. You tell yourself that nothing has changed, that the scene is still the same, that the fog is still comfort. But you can feel the isolation settling in, subtle at first, heavier with each week that passes. The social circle shrinks, not dramatically, not in a way you can pinpoint, but like sand slipping through your fingers. One face missing here, another there, until suddenly you realise the people you thought were permanent fixtures have disappeared without announcement. They have simply moved on, and you are left where you began, standing in the crowd, alone. The club itself begins to reveal its repetition. What once felt endless and alive now feels mechanical. The DJ's sets blend together until every song seems like an echo of the last. The lights spin in the same predictable patterns, the mirrored balls scattering the same fractured rain of silver you once thought was magic. The drinks taste the same. The smoke smells the same. The laughter sounds the same. You begin to wonder if you're attending different nights at all, or if the entire disco has been looping, replaying itself, trapping you in the same evening over and over. The pill was supposed to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary, but now it does the opposite. It makes the extraordinary flat, dull, monotonous. You lean on strangers more often now, your body heavier, your coordination weaker. Once, those strangers laughed and pulled you closer, treating your slackness as part of the game. Now they push you off, roll their eyes, mutter insults under their breath. The jokes that once felt inclusive now sting, sharp and cruel. You hear zombie whispered in corners, see fingers pointing, watch as groups peel away when you stumble too close. You try to pretend you do not notice, but you do. The mockery seeps into you as surely as the pill itself. And though you swallow again to quiet it, the noise lingers long after the warmth has spread. At home, the loneliness is sharper. The phone rings less often, the doorbell hardly at all. The friends who once dragged you out have stopped trying. The partners who once tolerated your blur have moved on. You fill the silence with more tablets, convincing yourself that calm is better than company, that sedation is easier than conversation. You tell yourself you do not need them, that the fog is enough. But in quiet moments, when the music has stopped and the walls feel too close, you hear the truth whispering back. You have been left behind. The decade is moving on without you, and you're standing still in the middle of a floor that no longer wants you. The disco remains loud, relentless, unchanging. It still thrums with energy, still roars with the voices of hundreds of bodies pretending they're free. But for you, the sound has lost its depth. You move through it like a shadow, your body present, your mind distant. You watch the people around you dance and laugh and shout, and you wonder how much of it is real. You wonder if they're seeing the same dullness you see, if they are also repeating the same night endlessly, or if the dullness belongs to you alone. The pill insists it is still working, still softening the edges, still giving you belonging, but the evidence around you tells another story. You cling to the memory of what it once felt like. You remember the first swallow, the warmth, the silver rain that seemed so dazzling. You chase that memory each night, convinced you can catch it again, convinced that one more pill will restore the magic. But the glamour does not return. Each swallow only deepens the dullness. Each night only adds another layer of fog. Each morning only confirms that the magic is gone. You are not liberated anymore. You are numbed, sedated, dulled into routine. The irony gnaws at you, though you do not say it aloud. The pill that once promised freedom has become the chain. Still, you cannot stop. Even as you see the pity in strangers' eyes, even as you feel the absence of friends, even as you stand alone in the middle of a floor full of noise, you reach for the tablet again. You convince yourself it is better this way, better to soften the truth than to face it. You tell yourself you can ride out the monotony, that the fog is safer than clarity, that the pill is still a gift. Even if the glamour has faded, you tell yourself these things as you swallow again, because without the lie, the silence would be unbearable. You've always avoided mixing alcohol with the pills, but you know in the scenes you frequent, it is inevitable, really. You're standing in the club again, the mirrored balls still scattering silver fragments across the smoke, the music still pounding in your chest. The pill has already dissolved into you, its weight pressing pleasantly against your limbs. The edges of thought softened into something manageable. And then someone presses a glass into your hand, a tall one, cold, heavy with condensation. The voice is cheerful, dismissive, casual. It goes better with a drink, they say, as though pairing alcohol with a Quaalude were no different than pairing wine with dinner. You smile, thank them, and raise it to your lips without hesitation. It does not even cross your mind to resist. After all, everyone else is drinking, everyone else is swallowing, everyone else is laughing. You are simply keeping pace. The burn of liquor runs down your throat, mixing with the chalky aftertaste of the tablet, and the combination does not feel dangerous. It feels smoother, easier, as though the drink greases the edges of the pill, speeding it along, quickening the descent into calm. Your stomach gurgles in protest, but you ignore it. The warmth spreads faster this time, your limbs drooping sooner, your head bobbing more quickly. The laughter bubbles up again, but it is different now, slower, heavier, echoing in your skull as though the room itself is laughing with you. The music sounds more distant, more hollow, but you do not care. You sway, grin, lift the glass again, and tell yourself that nothing has changed. But things do change. The combination reshapes the night in ways you cannot ignore for long. The blackouts arrive suddenly, patches of time ripped out of your memory like pages torn from a book. One moment you're raising a glass, the next you're sitting in a chair, with no idea how you got there. The condensation dripping onto your thigh. Friends assure you that you are fine, that you are laughing, that you are dancing, but you cannot summon the images. They are gone, replaced by blank stretches where your body must have continued without you. The first time it happens, you laugh it off. Everyone forgets things, everyone loses track. But the second time, the third time, the 10th time, each one leaves you with fewer fragments, fewer clues to assemble into a story of the night. Your body does not weather the combination as gracefully as you pretend. The slurred words are thicker, the stumbles heavier, Sometimes you do not stumble at all. You collapse. Once, on the edge of the dance floor, your knees simply give out, and you crumple to the sticky floorboards in a heap of sequins and sweat. Strangers step around you, annoyed, muttering, until someone finally hauls you upright. You laugh as though it were a joke, wave your hand, insist you're fine, but the look in their eyes says otherwise. The pill alone slowed you, but mixed with alcohol, it strips you of control entirely. You are not in charge of your body anymore. You are cargo, and your limbs drag along behind you like dead weight. The whispers start to circle. Someone overdosed last week. A friend of a friend? Someone else collapsed in the bathroom, pale and still, before an ambulance arrived with its screaming siren. You hear these stories in corners of the club, between songs, in low voices that hush when you walk by. They are not rare. They are not even shocking. They are part of the culture, folded into the rhythm of nights that go on too long. You nod when you hear them, feigning concern, shaking your head at the tragedy, but you do not connect it to yourself. You tell yourself you know your limits. You tell yourself you're careful. You tell yourself you're stronger than the nameless bodies carted out to waiting vans. The lie is easy to believe when you're already half drugged, already sliding down the slope of sedation. The ambulances become more frequent, or perhaps you simply notice them more now. You step outside to catch air and hear the wail of sirens slicing through the night. You see flashing lights reflecting off the mirrored windows of the club. Once you watch as a stretcher is rolled past, a pale arm dangling limply over the side, sequins glittering under the street lamps. Nobody speaks about it afterward. The music does not stop. The DJ does not falter. The dancers do not leave. The spectacle is swallowed by the fog, forgotten as easily as the missing hours in your own mind. You convince yourself this proves it cannot be serious. If it were truly dangerous, surely someone would stop it. Surely someone would intervene. But nobody does. So you raise another glass, swallow another pill, and tell yourself you are safe. The combination steals more of you each time. The laughter becomes forced, the smiles slack, the conversations incoherent. People stop trying to engage you, stop bothering to repeat themselves when you miss their words. You sway in the middle of the dance floor, nodding in rhythm to a beat you can barely hear, while the crowd shifts around you as though you're an obstacle. Sometimes you wake with bruises on your legs, cuts on your hands, proof that you have stumbled, fallen, crashed into things you cannot remember. You invent explanations, though they sound weak, even to your own ears. You were clumsy. You tripped. You brushed against a wall. You refuse to admit the truth, that you were unconscious on your feet, a body moving without a mind. At home, the effects linger longer. You wake with pounding headaches, your stomach knotted, your mouth tasting of bile. The fog does not lift quickly anymore. It drags on into the afternoon, sometimes into the evening. You feel slower, duller, unable to focus on even simple tasks. The world outside moves too fast and you cannot keep pace. Yet when night falls again, you find yourself preparing in the same way. The tablet ready, the glass waiting, the swallow inevitable. The promise of sedation outweighs the memory of sickness. You convince yourself it will be different this time, easier, smoother. You ignore the evidence because the alternative, stopping, is unbearable to imagine. You see others vanish. Friends who once shared pills with you stop showing up, their absence unexplained. Whispers circle about hospital stays, about overdoses, about disappearances that nobody wants to describe too clearly. You know what it means, but you keep your distance from the truth. You do not ask questions. You do not visit. You do not call. It is easier to pretend they have simply moved on, found new clubs, new scenes, new lives. You protect yourself with silence, with denial, with another swallow of the same poison. As long as you are still standing, you tell yourself you are fine. The irony is that you no longer know what standing really means. Nights dissolve into a series of blinks. You are on the floor, and then you are outside. You are dancing, and then you are in a car. You are laughing, and then you are in your bed. The sheets twisted around your legs. The missing hours grow larger, the gaps wider, until most nights vanish entirely. You wake without memory, piecing together only the fact that you're still alive, still present, still able to reach for the bottle again. The danger no longer shocks you. It has become routine, normalized, expected. Blackouts are as much a part of the night as music and smoke. One evening, after another collision of pill and drink, you wake with no idea how you got home. The room spins, your head throbs, your stomach twists, and the details of the night are gone. There are no fragments to piece together, no scraps of laughter or images of silver light. There is only absence, blank and absolute. You lie there, dizzy and aching, aware that the risk has escalated beyond denial. You should be frightened. You should be horrified. Instead, you shrug, roll over, and promise yourself you'll be more careful next time. The thought comforts you, though it is meaningless. The truth is that you do not care. The fog has claimed too much already, and you're still willing to follow it deeper. The blackouts stop feeling like interruptions and start feeling like the norm. Waking up with no memory of the night before becomes so familiar that it no longer rattles you, and soon the club itself loses its urgency. The music does not call as loudly as it once did. The crowds do not hold the same allure, and the silver scatter of the mirrored ball seems less like magic and more like a tired trick repeated too often. You still go sometimes, carried by inertia, but you notice the frequency dwindling. A week slips by without your feet touching the sticky floorboards. Then another. Soon the club is no longer the anchor of your nights. The pills themselves have taken that place, and they do not require smoke or noise or mirrored lights to work. They are enough on their own, and they're waiting for you at home. At first, you tell yourself it is an improvement. You convince yourself you're being practical, cutting out the noise and the chaos, stripping the ritual down to its essence. Why waste energy pretending to dance, pretending to laugh, pretending to hold conversations you can barely follow? Why not skip the middleman, avoid the stumble home, and simply go straight to the part where the fog descends? You frame it as efficiency, as though you're a cleverer addict than the ones still collapsing on dance floors. You tell yourself you have grown out of the need for crowds. You are mature now, refined, selective. But the truth is simpler and darker. You are too tired for the pretense. The pill is all you ever really wanted, and the club was only an excuse to swallow it in public. Nights at home take on a rhythm of their own. You sit at the kitchen table, the bottle on the wood before you, the water glass ready. Sometimes the television hums in the background, flickering with images you barely register. Sometimes a record spins quietly, though you rarely make it past the first few songs, before your head droops and your focus fades. More often there is nothing at all, just you, the bottle, the silence, and the relief that spreads after the swallow. The glamour is gone, stripped away with the sequins and smoke. What remains is pure sedation, functional, reliable, unadorned. You no longer chase euphoria. You chase absence, the blessed nothing that follows when the pill does its work. The silence becomes addictive in its own right. You relish the moment after the swallow, when the tension begins to loosen, when your thoughts stop clawing at you, when the noise of the day retreats. It is not joy, not pleasure, not even comfort. It is vacancy, an emptying that feels like relief, simply because it is not pain. You sit in your chair, body heavy, limbs slack, and convince yourself that this is peace. You do not need the laughter of a crowd. You do not need the music of a club. You do not need anything at all except the slow dissolution of consciousness. You pretend that this is freedom. though in reality, it is the tightest kind of cage. Friends call less often, and you do not mind. When they do, you make excuses. You are tired, you are working, you are not feeling well. They stop asking after a while, and the silence does not feel like abandonment, but like permission. Nobody is watching, nobody is judging, nobody is laughing at your slurred words or shoving you aside when you stumble. You tell yourself the solitude is a kindness. In truth, it is resignation. The world has moved on, and you have chosen the pill over keeping pace. It is easier to retreat than to keep watching the pity and mockery in other people's eyes. The routine deepens, evening comes, and without thinking, you reach for the bottle. It is not a decision anymore, not a choice weighed against alternatives. It is instinct, automatic, as natural as breathing. You pour water, tip the tablet into your palm, swallow, and wait. The cycle repeats night after night, until you cannot distinguish one from another. The days blur too, because the fog lingers, slowing your mornings, dulling your afternoons, dragging your body through motions you can barely finish. You are not living in days anymore. You are living in doses, one swallow to the next, each one promising the same blank silence. Your body feels heavier, slower, more stubborn each week. The nausea is worse now, sometimes arriving before the pill has had time to dissolve, as though your body is revolting against the inevitability of what comes next. You stagger to the bathroom, heave into the toilet, and then return to the table to finish what you started. The vomiting does not stop you, because the silence afterward is still better than the noise of abstaining. You mop your face, drink water, and convince yourself it is only temporary sickness. You whisper to yourself that tomorrow will be better. Then you reach for another pill, and tomorrow never changes. The pity is absent now, because there is no one left to offer it. The mockery too. There are no friends to laugh at you, no strangers to sneer, no partners to sigh in disappointment. There is only you, alone in your room, swallowing to keep the silence intact. The absence of their eyes is both relief and punishment. You are no longer humiliated, but you're no longer seen at all. You begin to realize that loneliness can be louder than any disco, a roar that fills the walls and presses against your chest until you cannot breathe. You respond the only way you know how, another swallow, another descent into vacancy. Sometimes you try to recall what it felt like when the pill seemed glamorous. You remember the glitter, the laughter, the way people crowded around you, pressing tablets into your palm as though they were gifts. You remember the warmth that once felt like belonging, the blur that once felt like freedom. Those memories are distant now, faint echoes you cannot fully trust. They feel like someone else's life, a stranger's story, not your own. You tell yourself it does not matter. The glamour was always a lie. This is the truth, the tablet, the swallow, the silence. Everything else was noise, and you are glad it is gone. At least that is what you tell yourself, though sometimes the silence feels unbearable and the lie tastes as bitter as the pill itself. The seasons shift again outside your window, though you barely notice. Summer fades to autumn, autumn to winter. Spring arrives and departs, and still you sit at the same table, the same bottle before you. You watch the world change without you. Neighbours moving, shops closing and opening, music drifting through the walls that you do not recognise anymore. The disco sound that once defined your nights is fading from radios, replaced by something sharper, faster, more frantic. You do not care. The pill still waits, the silence still comes, and that is enough. You are not part of the world anymore. You are orbiting outside it, tethered only to the bottle. When you do venture out, the disconnect is stark. The clubs you once frequented feel alien now. The music too loud, the crowd too young. You stand in the corner with your drink, swallowing your tablet in solitude while everyone else shouts and laughs, in ways that sound foreign. Nobody presses a pill into your hand anymore. Nobody slumps against you in camaraderie. You are there, but you're not part of it. You finish your drink, swallow again, and leave before the night has even reached its peak. The club is no longer your temple. It is someone else's, and you no longer belong. The irony is that you do not even mourn the loss. You tell yourself you prefer it this way, that you do not need the crowd, that the silence is cleaner without the noise of other people. You frame the solitude as strength, as independence, as proof that you are never truly chained to the scene. But in the quiet, you know the truth. You are not independent. You are abandoned by others and by yourself. The pill is no longer a ticket to freedom. It is a tether holding you to the same chair, the same silence, the same routine. You swallow again, as you always do, and stare at the wall until your eyes blur. The silence settles over you like a heavy blanket, smothering, suffocating, and you let it. You tell yourself you're content, though the word has lost its meaning. You tell yourself you're free, though you know you're imprisoned. You tell yourself you're in control, though your hand reaches automatically for the bottle. And each night ends the same way. Alone, heavy, vacant, drifting into nothing. The years drag, and when the calendar finally flips into the 1980s, you barely notice. There is no sudden announcement, no flashing sign to mark the change. For you, time has already lost its edges, blurred into the same haze of exhaustion and sedation. But the world outside your window does change, even if you do not feel it immediately. The clothes are sharper, the music harsher, the faces younger. People talk of new beginnings, of prosperity, of trends that you can hardly follow. And buried among the shifts is one decision that alters everything, though it comes too late to save you. Quaaludes are banned in the United States, pulled from pharmacies, stripped from the clubs, vanished from the culture that once embraced them so eagerly. The tablets that once seemed as common as candy are suddenly contraband, relics of a decade already dissolving into nostalgia. The news trickles in slowly, a headline glimpsed, a whisper overheard, a friend of a friend complaining that they can no longer get a prescription. You shrug when you first hear it, assuming it is temporary, another moral panic that will fade. But the absence begins to spread. Bartenders no longer slip them across the counter. Strangers no longer press them into your palm on the dance floor. Doctors stop scribbling the names onto prescription pads. The pill that once felt inescapable now begins to evaporate, pulled back into the shadows. The disco haze that carried you into the fog thins out, replaced by sharper, harsher substances that move faster, hit harder, and pull in the crowds you once thought were yours. The clubs themselves are shifting. Disco is no longer the soundtrack of the night. The mirrored balls are coming down, replaced by strobes and neon that flash in ways you cannot bear. The bass line is harder now, the rhythm relentless, and the crowd that fills the dance floor is younger, faster, leaner. Cocaine has replaced the pill as the ritual of belonging. Lines are drawn across mirrors, passed with the same casual camaraderie that once surrounded Quaaludes, and the people who snort them move with a manic energy that makes your heaviness all the more obvious. You stand in the corner, sluggish, half asleep, while the new decade races past you in a blur of speed and brightness. You do not fit anymore, not that you ever truly did. The irony is that while the drug disappears from the culture, it does not vanish from you. You still cling to the bottles you have, still measure your days by the rattle of tablets, still chase the silence that comes when the chalky weight dissolves. But even that grows more difficult. The supply dwindles, the sources dry up. The friends who once handed them out so easily now shake their heads. Some offer you cocaine instead, a thin line on a mirror, promising sharpness instead of sedation, energy instead of fog. You refuse not out of moral strength, but because the thought of speed terrifies you. You are too slow, too heavy, too far gone to chase a high that sharp. You want only the blankness you know, the silence you trust. As the supply shrinks, so does your place in the world. You are no longer invited to the parties, no longer part of the clubs, no longer swept along by the crowd. The scene you once clung to has shed its skin, moved on to new rituals, new idols, new lies dressed as liberation. You are not even mocked anymore. You are ignored. The laughter that once stung, the pity that once burned, all of it has evaporated with the disco sound. You are invisible now, standing in a room that no longer notices you, moving through streets that no longer care. The drug has vanished from the culture, and with it, so have you. You watch from a distance as the decade shapes itself without you. The television blares with glossy ads for success, for money, for speed, for power. The music on the radio is sharper, hungrier, faster, as though the world itself has decided to sprint. The fashion is bolder, harsher, more angular, and you do not recognize yourself in it. You move slower, dimmer, heavier. The fog has not lifted, but the world around you has brightened in a way that leaves you behind. Where once you floated along with the blur of the crowd, now you drag yourself through silence while the crowd races past in technicolor. The Quaaludes that remain are hoarded like relics. You count the tablets left in your bottle with the precision of a miser counting coins. Each one is rationed, though you never truly succeed at rationing. Each swallow is accompanied by the whisper of fear. What if this one is the last? You know the supply will run out eventually, and you dread the day it does. But you do not prepare. You do not plan. You only swallow again, convincing yourself that you will deal with the end when it arrives. The truth is that you have no intention of dealing with anything. The silence is too tempting, the fog too familiar, the pill too much a part of your body to imagine life without it. Your family no longer asks questions. The concern that once flickered in their eyes has been extinguished. They speak to you politely, cautiously, as though afraid to wake something volatile inside you. Their visits grow rare, their calls sporadic. They have lives of their own, lives that have continued to move forward into the new decade, lives that do not leave room for your slow decline. Friends too have faded away, absorbed into the faster, sharper culture of cocaine and ambition. You remain outside it all, slower, dimmer, invisible. The world no longer bothers to pity you. It has simply forgotten you. The collapse that began in silence deepens in invisibility. You wake later each day, your body refusing to rise until noon, your mind sluggish long after. You shuffle through the same rooms, touch the same walls, sit in the same chair, swallow the same pill. The noise of the new decade filters in through the cracks, but it does not belong to you. The laughter is not yours. The music is not yours. The energy is not yours. You are stranded in a time that has ended, clinging to a drug that has vanished from everyone else's memory. You are living in a decade that no longer exists, a ghost tethered to silence while the world speeds away. The disco era that once carried you has already become nostalgia, a cartoon version of itself, painted in reruns and soundtracks. People speak of sequins and mirrored balls with a fondness that feels foreign to you, as though they are remembering a party you never attended. They call it glamorous, they call it free, they call it decadent. They do not mention the bottles rattling in purses, the pills passed from sweaty palms, the bodies slumped in bathrooms while the music roared on. The darker details are quietly erased, sanded down into a smoother version of history, one easier to digest. And so you are erased with them. Your truth is not part of the story. Your body's collapse does not fit into the shiny narrative of freedom. The Quaalude itself disappears more completely than you could have imagined. Where it was once as common as cigarettes, it is now as absent as if it had never existed. Pharmacies no longer stock it. Clubs no longer whisper its name. Magazines no longer advertise it as safe sleep in pill form. By the late 1980s, it is a ghost, remembered vaguely by those who once swallowed, forgotten entirely by those who came after. When people look back, they talk of cocaine, of Wall Street excess, of neon suits and shoulder pads. Your pill has no place in that history, and so neither do you. You vanish into the gaps, as invisible as the drug itself. There are no stories about you. No friends gather to recall your laughter, because they're gone, folded into their own lives, their own narratives that do not include you. No family passes down anecdotes, because your decline is not something they want to remember. The photographs from those years fade in albums, blurred by disuse, and if your face appears at all, it is an afterthought. Nobody writes about you, nobody sings about you, nobody tells your story. You dissolve into the same silence that the pill brought each night, a silence that lingers even after you're gone. You try to remember yourself, but even your own mind betrays you. The gaps in memory have widened into canyons, and whole stretches of your life are missing. You know you were there, standing on sticky floors, laughing under mirrored balls, swallowing tablets in kitchens and bedrooms, but the details have been stripped away. You cannot recall the faces of the people who pressed pills into your hand, cannot remember the songs that played while your body swayed, cannot even reconstruct the words you once slurred in laughter. Your own life has been edited out, piece by piece, until you're left with little more than impressions, silver light, bitter chalk, silence. The rest is blank. The nostalgia that others embrace feels like mockery when you hear it. They speak of freedom, of joy, of liberation, as though the decade was one long party. They do not mention the wreckage. They do not mention you. They laugh about fashion, about dances, about songs, while you sit in your chair, your bottle near at hand, wondering if you were ever truly part of it. The decade they describe is not the one you lived. Theirs is all surface, glitter and music. Yours was collapse, nausea, trembling hands. The history they preserve is not your history. Yours is buried, erased, discarded. The irony is that even the drug itself has become glamorous in its absence. In whispered circles, in half-forgotten anecdotes, people call it legendary, the perfect high of a vanished time. They do not describe the vomiting, the blackouts, the ambulances. They speak of it as though it were a golden relic lost too soon, a casualty of moral panic. You know better, but your knowledge is not wanted. Your reality does not fit the myth. And so you remain silent, while history rewrites itself into something smoother, easier, safer. Your own silence grows deeper. You stop trying to explain, stop trying to correct, stop trying to remind anyone of what really happened. You no longer have the strength for it. Each day is slower, dimmer, heavier, your body dragging through routines that mean nothing. The fog does not lift anymore, even between doses. You're caught in a permanent twilight, a half-existence that nobody sees. You fade in the same way the pill has faded, not with a bang, but with a quiet retreat into obscurity. You become another ghost, tethered to a drug the world has chosen to forget. When the decade is remembered in books and films, your absence is complete. The 1970s become disco, cocaine, rebellion, fashion. The 1980s become greed, neon, Wall Street. You are not in either story. You are part of the space between, a blank chapter that nobody bothers to write. You are not a warning, not a tragedy, not even an anecdote. You are nothing. The drug that consumed you is gone, and with it the memory of those it devoured. You dissolve into silence, erased from culture, erased from history, erased from yourself. There is no legacy left behind, no lessons, no cautionary tale, No trace of the life you once thought you were living. The world moves forward, and you are left behind. Not mourned, not remembered, not even noticed. The pill gave you silence, and silence is all that remains. And so, you dissolve into history, one of countless addicts, forgotten with the drug that consumed you. And that brings us to the end of tonight's story. Not a tale of disco lights and freedom, but of a pill that promised calm and fun, until the body slowed, the friends vanished, and the decade itself moved on without you. Feel free to like, subscribe, or leave a comment with another forgotten corner of history you'd like explored next. If you'd like early access to more of these quiet descents into forgotten history, ad-free audio of the episodes, or just want to support the show, there's a link to the Patreon in the description. If you're listening on a podcast app, a rating or review helps more people find their way to these stories. And special thanks to the supporters who make this show possible, including our chroniclers, Andrew S. and Rich Davis. Sleep well.